So let's work on our general journal now. So we've done the first part. We've processed the balance day adjustments and we've made the adjustments to our list of accounts and classified them. We now move to the general journal. Now there are only a couple of general journal entries that you need to be able to do, and they start with, first of all, processing the balance day adjustments. And in this particular example, we've got 4 of them. So let's put in the date, 2010, June 30. I'm going to split my screen so that I can see my general journal and exercise at the same time. Okay, so the first adjustment was, I suppose it doesn't really matter what order you do them in, so we're going to do this first one here. The supplier forwarding the cheque for commission revenue. Okay, so what did we do to the commission revenue? Did we increase the commission revenue or decrease it because we received that cheque by $50? We ended up decreasing it to adjust it. So you can remind yourself by that by looking at the commission revenue account here. It was originally $2,000. That's why it's a good idea to always keep the original figure, but we adjusted it down. So how do we decrease the revenue? You debit it. So it's commission revenue, debit, because it's rearranged. It doesn't matter what order you do your adjustment entries in. I'm just doing it in that order first, because when I rearranged it, that adjustment went to the top. Commission revenue debit, and it was $50. And what was that commission revenue? It was unearned. Unearned revenue, credit, 50. And the narration is balance day adjustment. And I like to underline my adjustments because I think it's a good idea, particularly when you're working on your exercise, to be able to distinguish between entries. I know a lot of you just put them one under another. I think that doesn't make editing easier. Leave a row blank, underline it, go on to the next one. Okay, the next one is advertising. Advertising was for a campaign that spanned 5 months. So what did we end up doing to the advertising account? Have a look at the row to remind you. We decreased advertising. How do you decrease an expense account? You credit. Remember, you need to be able to know that really quickly. Credit advertising. What was debited? Well done. Prepaid expense, because we paid for it ahead of time, and the expense was, the prepaid amount was $600, and advertising needed to decrease by $600. Oops, forgot my narration. Okay, I'll just pause there. Any questions? Okay, next one. The new tenant is overdue in sending their rent. So what did we end up doing to the rent revenue account? We should have received it. We didn't receive it. We increased it. You credit an increasing revenue. So what was debit? Accrued revenue was debited by $2,000, and rent revenue was credited $2,000. Balance day adjustment is the narration. And then the last one is right down the... Where's my last one? It's disappeared. What was it? Oh, that's right, it was wages. Oh, there it is there. I must have skipped that one out. Okay. Wages had accrued. So that's an accrued expense. What did I have to do to the wages account? I had to increase it. So you debit an expense to increase it by 800 because that was the accrued amount, and accrued expenses, or accrued expense was credit 800. My narration is balance day adjustment. Okay, so that's the first set of general journal entries that you have to perform. Complete the entries for those adjustments. Okay, what do I do now in the general journal? Yes, I have to close off my expenses and revenues to P&L summary. So I close off my revenues first. What do you have to do to a revenue account to close it? Revenues are normally credited. To reduce their balances to zero, we have to debit them. So here's where I use a formula. Do I need to wait a couple of seconds for you all to catch up? On top of it? Excellent. You're destroying it? That's excellent, Ben. Thank you. That's good. I'm very pleased. All right, so I'm going to start now. Is that okay? Yep. Okay, so we want to now close off our revenues. So I'm going to bring in a formula, and I'm going to click. I want to bring in sales. So I'll click in sales here in my worksheet, my exercise worksheet, and bring it across. I'm going to drag over the amount, so I know that now I'm going to get 50,000 there for sales, and then I'm going to pick up my little dot here and drag down, and I like to drag down further than I know I need to go, just to make sure I bring them all in, and then I can just go back and delete the rows that I don't need. So if you can just get to that point there, thanks boys. Yep, don't worry about it. Okay, so at this point now, I need to move these amounts into the debit column because that's where I want them. These are all going to be debited to close them, so I just key in debit once and I can copy that down for all the others. But there's a problem with this here, and Tavanka's already identified it. Andrew? Yeah, I have to complete the double entry here. Yep. I have to complete the double entry, so something has to be credited here. Well done, Andrew. What's the problem here, Robert? You have another question? The problem is sales returns. We do not debit sales returns to close it because it's a contra revenue. Whenever you bring in all your revenues, this is one disadvantage of doing it this way. You need to be on your game and you need to delete that row. So go back and delete revenue because revenue, sales revenue, is not debited to close it off. Sales revenues are always debited to start with because they represent an amount of stock that comes back into the business. That figure is used to decrease sales in the income statement. So we need to credit sales returns to close it off. So delete it from your list there. Yes, Robert?
In the exam, do we need to do the narrations like balance day?
Yeah, so the question is, do we need the adjustment, the narrations? Be ready to put them in, but I might say no, narrations are not required. So let's just finish this entry here. We need to credit this, so all I need to do is auto sum, which has disappeared because I've made it a little bit too small, and there it is there. So I'm going to auto sum, highlight the numbers I want to add together, and enter. That's going to be credited, and what is the credit account to close off? P&L summary. And the narration is closing entry. Excellent. Now we repeat that whole process, but this time we're going to close off our expenses. What do you do to an expense to close it off? You debit expenses to increase them. Closing off an expense means you want to reduce it to zero, so expenses are credited to close them off.
What do you do with that account now?
Sales returns. Yep, I'll show you what you do with sales returns now. So I'm going to close off the expenses, and I'll do that in the next video. Yes, it's a cliffhanger. Very cute. All right, I'll just stop this. Thanks, boys.